On July 23rd, Congresswoman Summer Lee moved in this very committee to subpoena the full and unredacted Epstein files. And just to be clear, because of that subpoena, the Department of Justice and Pam Bondi have been required by law to provide the Epstein files to this committee since the summer of 2025. They have been in gross illegal violation of the subpoena this entire time. And when it finally came to the floor and it became clear that the bill would pass overwhelmingly, only then did he endorse and then sign the bill so that he wouldn't lose. This required the DOJ to release the unredacted Epstein files publicly by December 19th. The DOJ has blown past that deadline, releasing only 1% of the files, which is patently absurd. And the files they did release were heavily redacted, which is completely illegal according to the law. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, has violated the subpoena issued by this committee. We should be holding her in contempt to remain fair and to remain transparent. And so I ask that you do that if you really truly want to be fair and care about the justice for the victims here.
May I respond? We have been very clear. We expect those documents. She has complied. She's turned over documents. In the
1%
in the beginning, you all
compliant.
complained and said the first document dump didn't have enough redactions, and the second document dump had too many redactions. So they're trying to get this, and I believe,
Mr. Chairman,
that we will get those documents very soon.
You.
I have been assured we're going to get those documents very soon.
I hear you, but with all due respect, given everything that she herself stated in February of last year, her own statements in front of the entirety of the American public saying, we have the documents, they are ready to go. Mm-hmm. The subpoena from this committee was issued in July.
And nobody on our side is defending Pam Bondi. I can assure you.
Then she should be held in contempt. If we are going to hold
She is complying with, they have turned documents over. They have turned documents over, and every time they do, you all complain about too many redactions, not enough redactions. So
that is unacceptable. It has been 6 months,
right,
and there's been
your
nothing
time's expired,
produced.
and we want the documents. We've made that very clear.
You heard Comer's words. Even one of the most staunch MAGA loyalists in Congress is throwing Pam Bondi under the bus as her DOJ continues to drag their feet about releasing the full batch of Epstein documents. While Republicans were only worried about demanding that the Clintons, of course, comply with the committee's subpoena for in-person testimony, which, to be clear, is absolutely the right thing to do and something that, well, it must be done. They remain silent, though, about the people like Bondi, who have the power to act right now in the interest of the law, the American people, and justice.
We are 1 week out from Bill and Hillary Clinton, who did not show up for their depositions. 1 week, and we're already having a markup to hold them in contempt. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice has been legally obligated to hand over the full unredacted Epstein files to this committee since August, the same exact subpoena that they are using to hold the Clintons in contempt. And please note that these resolutions are allowing the DOJ to prosecute the Clintons for the exact same things that the DOJ itself is violating. They have handed over 1% of the files and heavily redacted. We are 5 months overdue. Mr. Comer, you've made no effort to bring in Pam Bondi, so no, the difference is not clear. You have made no effort to demand any answers, to exert any pressure. So with that, Mr. Chair, I do have an amendment at the desk which would hold Pam Bondi in contempt for noncompliance with the bipartisan subpoena that you issued on August 5th, 2025. I hope that my colleagues will support.
This is where the entire law and order argument, it starts to collapse under its own weight, of course, because subpoenas don't just come with party labels. Contempt is not supposed to be a political tool. If you believe the law should be enforced, then it has to be enforced consistently, not just when it targets people you don't like or people who no longer hold power. When accountability becomes selective, it is no longer about justice, folks. It's about shielding the right people and applying pressure to everyone else.
At the heart of this effort to release the Epstein files are very real human beings who have experienced unimaginable harm. They have been repeatedly victimized by the indifference of the U.S. government and the injustice that they face. They deserve peace and healing and justice. And I thank Chairman Comer for pushing this effort forward by issuing additional subpoenas for the Epstein estate and the banks. And we know that without the full files from the DOJ, that is just not enough. That's why I'm introducing this amendment, which holds Attorney General Pam Bondi in civil contempt for failing to comply with the August 5th subpoena, and I urge my colleagues to support it. And we believe that we should start with civil contempt because we are serious about this investigation. We want these files and we want to hear from them. And we must start there. The Department of Justice needs to be the priority. It has been 5 months, and we're still missing over 5 million pages of documents purportedly. The Department of Justice has only released 1% of those files. They have stonewalled this committee since August, and they have failed to provide even the most basic updates. How is that not an insult both to the authority of this committee and the survivors? Without the full files, how can we know who might have legitimate knowledge or who might be culpable? We wouldn't have to speculate on the Clintons or anyone else's involvement if we had all of those files. And to be clear, I'm certainly not opposed to the President and Secretary Clinton being held accountable for violating the subpoena. But the fact that this effort to hold the Clintons in contempt was fast-tracked and is happening before any action against the Justice Department is just evidence that the Republicans on this committee are not taking this investigation seriously. It is an unequal application of law.
So this is where motive matters. Oversight Committee Republicans are motivated to protect Pam Bondi and her Department of Justice from being held in contempt because contempt would force immediate action. It would require the release of Epstein documents that cannot be controlled, cannot be delayed, cannot be walked back once they're public. Holding Bondi in contempt, that would mean losing control over the timeline, the narrative, and the political fallout, especially heading into an election year. This is not about whether the Clintons should comply with a subpoena. Of course they should. This is about why that same standard suddenly stops when it reaches a sitting DOJ that has the power to act right now. Protecting Bondi is about preserving leverage, avoiding unmanageable disclosure, and keeping accountability at a safe distance from current power.
It is a bit ironic that these contempt resolutions empower the Justice Department to imprison possibly 2 people for defying the exact same subpoena that they themselves are defying. If this committee wants to be taken seriously, we would be addressing all the bad actors in this investigation, not cherry picking them for political points. The Justice Department needs to be held accountable for their noncompliance and lack of transparency. They have been selectively producing information, shielding powerful people, and obstructing any efforts for oversight. And if we don't hold them accountable, Mr. Chair, we are too. A group of survivors sent a letter to the Justice Department's Inspector General complaining that the redactions had been, quote, selective. They pointed out that multiple times the names of alleged abusers appeared to be redacted, yet some survivors' names and identifying information were released. To be clear, the subpoena I moved to secure does not allow for redactions unless it would protect the identity of a survivor or contains child sex abuse materials. They have had plenty of time to work with this committee to protect survivors' identities. This is bigger than one case. It's about rich and powerful people being protected by each other and institutions. It's about a system that has enabled Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and whoever their co-conspirators are to buy favors and silence from our government. This effort is the one time we could get some real accountability and reclaim the power of this system.
And in the end, the Oversight Committee made that priority clear by shutting down Representative Summerlee's amendment to hold Pam Bondi in contempt for failing to release the Epstein documents. That was the moment where talk about justice, it gave way to the reality of protection. The committee had a choice here. Apply the same standard they demand from others, or shield the people who still control the process. They chose the latter. And now here is where Democrats have a real opportunity as the midterms approach. People already understand this story. They do. They understand hypocrisy. They also understand double standards. And they understand when justice is being delayed on purpose. The Epstein fiasco is not about relitigating old names. It's about exposing who is blocking transparency right now. If Democrats are smart, They keep the focus there. They keep asking the same question over and over and over. Why is accountability urgent for some, optional for others? Because that question cuts straight through the noise. And voters, they already know. They already know the answer.